Spider-Man 2 officially released on PC a few weeks ago, and it's been absolutely dominating my life. I can't stop playing it. It's so close to being perfect. So I thought, why not make a video on the ways that Spider-Man 2 could have been a better game. We could see all of these improvements in Spider-Man 3, so here are 6 ways that Spider-Man 2 could have been better. Starting with the least impactful change at number 6, improved accessibility. The accessibility in this game is already quite impressive. You can customize the subtitles, font size, background, contrast. This game is pretty accessible. I would just like to suggest adding 2 more adjustable features. Number 1, adjustable traversal speed. This would impact the way Spider-Man swings and moves. Perhaps this could be a feature in New Game Plus, but I feel like this would be the natural progression and upgrade of the traversal system. Allow the player to swing across the map at absurd speeds. It's the final chapter of the game, why not? Second feature that I want is adjustable game speed. Now this feature is already in the game, but you can only slow down the game. I would like a feature that speeds up the game. This would just make for a better flow. We all have those missions that we just don't really want to do, or just certain sections that are way too tedious. Allowing the player to speed up the game would make those sections much more bearable. And then inadvertently, this would also increase the swing speed as well. So this could be a 2-in-1, but I would like separate sliders for these 2 features. And while we're talking about accessibility, make the game more stable, improve the AI pathfinding, all the bugs and glitches, have more stable frame rates, higher quality textures, reduced loading times. I feel like this next game can realistically improve on all of these aspects as technology advances. So that is suggestion number 6. Let's move on to a slightly more impactful change. Number 5, Spider-Man 3 needs to have better story and side content. Spider-Man 2 offers quite a lot of things, and not all of them necessary or well placed in my opinion. Players buy these games to play as Spider-Man, not to necessarily paint graffiti or ride a bike around New York. I appreciate the fact that these options are there. I just didn't wish that they were so mandatory to progressing the story and the game. If these were like post-game content, then they would be super welcome. But the fact that you have to actively engage in all of these bloated side content definitely weighs down the game and reduces the amount of time that the game has for other aspects of the story that are far more important. The flashback sequences are well-meaning and different, but they just drag on for far too long. The MJ stealth missions, better than the first game, still not really what I'm looking for in a Spider-Man game. So my suggestion is to have a more streamlined focus back on the Spider-Men and Silk, now that she's most likely going to be a playable character in Spider-Man 3 as well. The Spider People are why we want to play the games. Streamline the focus on them. But if we are talking about side content, here's what I would like to see more of. I would like more side missions where we team up with other heroes to take down enemies. I loved the Wraith missions, I loved the Black Cat missions. I would like more of those, and less of Prowler stashes. Second thing, I would also like better random dynamic events. The random dynamic encounters are serviceable, but after a while it gets repetitive. Throw in more scenarios in there like bank heists or supervillain encounters. Here's how they could potentially do that. Now, I've always felt that the raft as a place has been underutilized in these games. So what Spider-Man 3 could do is to have this cycling timed system where these villains are constantly released and captured from the raft, so that the player constantly has a group of supervillains to constantly fight and put back in confinement. We can have random little mini boss fights against obscure Spider-Man villains like The Wall maybe, or Big Wheel. And then finally, I would also like it if we could play more as side characters. They did it with Venom in this game, it was awesome. Now let us play as Wraith or Black Cat or maybe even Carnage. they can do a similar thing as Venom, where these characters already have set abilities that aren't upgradable. You just play as them, and what you get is what you get. Story-wise, Spider-Man 1 had a very compelling story. Spider-Man 2 went bigger and more bold. I enjoyed most of the storytelling, but it wasn't perfect. Storytelling is really subjective, so I can't really recommend how the story can go down in Spider-Man 3. What I can suggest is perhaps one way to spice up the player's engagement with the story, which is to perhaps include dialogue choices in the next game. Players can now have a direct impact on how the story unfolds, and maybe these choices will even lead to multiple endings. That would be pretty cool, though I admit, not necessary. Moving on to suggestion number 4, improved customization. Spider-Man 2 allowed a lot more customization to the player than Spider-Man 1 did. Let's crank it up even more for Spider-Man 3. Now, instead of just letting us choose the color palette and slight design alteration of the suit, give the player full control of suit customization, down to the colors, the patterns, accessories, eye lenses, textures, suit materials, webbing. They can go all out for Spider-Man 3 here. Call me crazy, but I think the reason why they kind of held back on the customization in Spider-Man 2 is because they're saving it for Spider-Man 3, where we can just do anything we want to the suits. Maybe this suit customization can be unlocked after beating the game, so that players can still have a reason to unlock the suits before making a completely unique one of their own. You know what else would be crazy? Maybe we could also customize Peter or Miles themselves. Maybe we can change their haircut. Maybe we can adjust their facial features or clothing choices. And once again, this could be like a new game plus feature. And final thing, bring back suit abilities. They were awesome. They add an additional flair to the game. Bring them back. Let's move on to suggestion number 3, better open world and traversal. These two are clumped together because I feel like they go hand in hand. The traversal is already so good. I would just like to add a few more touches. Number 1, allow the player to climb up and down the web lines. This could allow for more takedown options. This would just make swinging more dynamic. Number 2, improve the climbing mechanics. Climbing up buildings and structures just feels awkward. It always has been. Maybe add an upgradable ability that allows us to run faster on walls and surfaces, or allow us to slingshot ourselves while climbing. In terms of open world, I would like for more interactive landmarks. There are many iconic locations in New York City, and it would be great if players could interact with them in a more meaningful way. You know, unlocking additional lore, mini missions, or special rewards related to these locations. And while the open world design of New York is fantastic, I would like to see more distinct districts. Each district could have more unique attributes like different NPC behaviors and appearances, or just more visually distinct locations. And I think the suggestion is pretty realistic. I'm pretty sure they're going to expand the map once again for the third game. And if you want to make things even more crazy, maybe add more dynamic weather that can actually affect our gameplay, such as rain making web swinging harder, or snow causing icy conditions that makes it harder to fight enemies. Sliding on to suggestion number 2, improved replayability. We've kind of already touched on this, but the post-game content in Spider-Man 2 is kind of lackluster. I feel like a lot of the slower missions that we were forced to do could have been shifted to post-game content instead. But here are a few more suggestions on how they can improve the replayability. Number 1, maybe after the player beats the game, they can unlock challenge modes, like a survival mode where they battle against endless waves of enemies, kind of like a Devil May Cry situation. Or number 2, add a multiplayer / co-op mode. This would be an online mode where people can play with each other essentially. Allow people to play as whichever spider people they want, and then allow them to go on these exclusive co-op missions and explore the open world together. Have them team up against a very tough boss or groups of enemies. have online leaderboards and competitions and challenges for players to compete globally, have daily or weekly challenges that provide extra rewards or unlockables like charms, stickers, accessories. Multiplayer co-op mode would change the game, and once again they could unlock this mode after beating the game. All of these suggestions have been really great, but by far the thing that I want Spider-Man 3 to improve on is suggestion number 1. I think this is the lifeblood of the Spider-Man games, which is of course improved combat. If there's going to be a multiplayer mode, what are the players going to be doing? They're going to be swinging around, beating enemies up. So here's how I would improve the combat in Spider-Man 3. Number 1, less health bars for boss fights. The boss fights in Spider-Man 2 are great, but they kind of drag on for a bit. My suggestion, regular bosses have 2 health bars. Big monumental bosses have maximum 3 health bars. There's no need for villains to have like 5 or 6 health bars. That's just overdoing it a bit too much. Second suggestion, of course we have to talk about this. Bring back the gadgets from Spider-Man 1. They were so good. The web bombs, electric webs, impact webs, suspension matrix, all of the other ones. Keep the gadgets from Spider-Man 2 as well. I actually like them. I don't think they're better than the Spider-Man 1's versions, but include all of them. It would make sense narratively as well for the Spider-Man to have all of these gadgets as the villains are getting tougher to fight. Just have like a scrolling wheel that we can alternate between so that we can access all of these gadgets. I think that is pretty possible. Once again, bring back suit abilities, more varied combo options, takedowns, larger variety of enemy types. Of course, all of these would improve combat significantly. Now, I would like to add a new mechanic to the combat system called the cover mechanic, and it's exactly as it sounds. I want to be able to take cover during combat, because once you're in a fight in these games, you can't really shift back into stealth, or at least not as smoothly as you want it to be. Maybe with Miles it's easier, but with Peter, once you're engaged in combat, there's pretty much no way of ducking out or changing your playstyle. With this cover mechanic, maybe players can use their environment more to hide from enemies, and while they're hiding and taking cover, their health can regenerate. This would just allow for more combat elements, and likewise the enemies could also take cover. Now realistically, do the Spider-Men have to hide from enemies when they could just zip away? This is true, but for the sake of a better combat system, I'm willing to overlook that quote-unquote fallacy. Lastly, I would like to have more advanced AI. Make the enemies work together better, make the enemies also use the environment to their advantage, and make them adapt to the player's movements. That would be really cool. And that is how I would make Spider-Man 3 bigger, better, and greater. If you would like to support this channel, please consider becoming a channel member. Press the join button or the link in the description below, and for the equivalent of $2 a month, you'll get access to badges, emojis, and your username displayed at the end of every video, like this. Thank you for your consideration. Back to the video. But that is just my opinion. How would you design Spider-Man 3? What areas of Spider-Man 2 could have been improved? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to read your responses. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.